Hi, my attempt at a second live stream here. So let's see how this one goes. Let's wait till maybe a few more people will join. A couple of minutes. I have a new tool that sort of takes care of showing comments. For example, Peter says, "Hi from Montreal, Canada." You should see it now. That's what I was setting up when you saw before that I was doing stuff on the stream before you saw the camera image. Hi, Connell. Bojan. Hello. Okay, maybe I should just get going. I had one main subject today, which was talking about Dolby ATMOS and what does it actually mean for home studios. And that's kind of based on a video that called Caparoon released recently. So I want to have a look at that. But I think it's about, well, exactly 3 hours ago, I got an email from Waves, which of course Waves has been all over the place, all over YouTube recently since Sunday when they announced that they were going full subscription only, and they got like pretty much only negative comments. So if you didn't see that, then you must have been living under a rock almost. But 3 hours ago, they sent around an email and published on social media that they would backtrack on that and that they would still offer perpetual licenses and their Waves update plan like before. And in addition, they would add subscription. They would add a subscription plan. So I think that's a good development. Yeah. Well, I can show you the email. This one is from their CTO, and he basically apologizes for causing all the frustration. He says they listened to our concerns and they're bringing back the perpetual license model side by side with the new subscriptions. So yeah, offering both. That's what most companies seem to do nowadays. So that's great. Yes. Peter saying, we spoke and they listened. Power to the people. Exactly, Peter. So now, obviously, they also reinstated the Waves update plan. So you will be able to update your licenses to the latest version in case, for example, they don't run anymore on your OS, or in case you need bug fixes that they only release in their latest version. I myself, I don't think, maybe I've once updated via the Waves update plan, but old versions still keep running on Windows for me, so I basically never have to update. And we are currently and they're currently trying to get everything back online, and you can follow it on the news page. And I would like to know he would like to know that they're still committed to us, and he hopes that they can regain our trust after this, well, quite frankly, a debacle of a measure that they took to only do subscriptions. Yeah, I don't want to dive in this too long, although I see, well, Ed is saying over here, do you think it's just a publicity stunt? A few other YouTubers have suggested it. I think there's been too great a risk for losing customers. Yeah, I don't think it's a publicity stunt. I cannot imagine that they would be so... yeah, it generated so much negative publicity that it's a publicity stunt. No, I can't imagine. It'll even take them, regain our trust. I think that's definitely necessary because a lot of people have made plans to just completely ditch all Waves plugins, and they've also tried to find alternatives already, and maybe they found that there are quite good alternatives. So. I cannot imagine that it's a publicity stunt. And I even think that to gain our trust, why not a free web update for everybody? That everybody can update to the latest version for free as a sort of public apology. And maybe I will keep running my Waves plugins now anyway. I would have kept running them anyway also until they didn't work anymore. But yeah, I would have refrained from buying new plugins. And now, if they release a nice plugin, I still might. The last plugin I bought was Clarity VX, which was the noise reduction on vocals basically, and that worked very nicely. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all I want to say about Waves at this moment. My main subject is actually the video that Colt Caperoon released, I think probably about a week ago, about the impact of Dolby ATMOS on the music industry. And he actually released 2 videos, but I'm going to show parts of the second one, where he talks about what impact does it have on the music industry, what impact does it have on home studios like us, what impact does it have on artists. And I think it's a very, well, maybe you can call it scary, but it's something to look into, I think. And it's quite interesting as well. So let's have a look at the intro. If I go to his video, this is the intro of his video.
Why is Apple Music forcing us into Atmos? Today we're going to talk about it. I'm going to share my thoughts with you. We're going to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, so why is Apple Music forcing us into Dolby Atmos? That's basically what he says. And that's based on the fact that he's in contact with a lot of the, let me get my notes out here so that I can actually see what I want to talk about. Yeah, it's based on the fact that there's a lot of studios who are currently converting to Dolby Atmos. And he heard a bit in the grapevine basically that for Apple, if you don't release and distribute your music in Dolby Atmos to Apple Music, then you would not get playlisted anymore. So you would basically not be taken seriously anymore, which is quite heavy, I think. So you also see that a lot of other studios have been converting to Dolby Atmos. For example, Mixbus TV, David, I think he talked about this like many months ago already, and he probably has converted it already. At least he was thinking about it. I think it's like 10 months ago that he published that video. But now Colt was really the first one to bring home that in the not too distant future, he expects that when you distribute music for streaming, then you would almost be obliged to provide a Dolby Atmos mix, because otherwise you would not be taken seriously. For example, Apple Music would not put your music into editorial playlist anymore. So yeah, that's quite serious. And to me, I was thinking like, well, if that's really true, if that helps, if it works like that in the not too distant future, what does that mean for home studios like mine over here? And to that end, I also did a poll. Let's have a look at that. I did a couple of recent polls actually, but this one is first thing I asked, like, what do you use your studios and digital audio workstation for? And well, 28% of you, like so roughly a quarter, say that you use it for hobby only, but the other, well, 72%, I guess, a lot of people use it in the same way that I use my home studio. I record and release tracks for my band basically, and I use it for this YouTube channel. Some have a commercial studio part-time, some operate a commercial studio full-time, and others work, for example, on music for film or friends, or they're also quite seriously busy with music in their studio. And that would mean that for 75%, almost, well, 72% of you, if it goes like Colt predicted, that I guess you would have a problem. You would seriously need to start thinking about doing stuff in Dolby Atmos. So now I've made a video. I've made a video on Dolby Atmos myself when it was just released as a feature in Cubase 12. I think it was in one of the bug fix updates of Cubase 12. I figured, well, let's check out what that's all about. How does it work? And it was mostly about the technical side of Dolby Atmos and how to use it in Cubase and how it works in Cubase. And that was also really my first dive into Dolby Atmos. So far, I have not really made a serious mix in Dolby Atmos because I don't have a Dolby Atmos setup. I mean, it is possible to use Dolby Atmos and make a mix via your headphones, but it's not really ideal yet. So I don't know if I would feel secure enough to make a serious mix just on headphones and then release it without being able to check it on a real professional system, for example. So yeah, that's basically what I'm doing. But let's check out a few more segments of Colt's video to see what this is all about. And I've made some URLs that should be possible to paste them in here.
Previous video, it basically came out February 1st that you would no longer get playlisted on Apple Music unless you submitted your music in Atmos. Now, there were a lot of people wondering where this article is, where was this press release, and it wasn't. So it basically came out through the head of Warner Chappell here in Nashville, and it was a very much inside baseball thing. It was very much like the info was spread around to all the management teams and all the labels, and instantly everyone was on the same page with this. So there is no formal press release of this. It's a very much inside baseball music industry thing. Now, I have seen a couple people say that they did get playlisted even though they weren't in Atmos, but the overwhelming majority and everyone in the industry, all the A-list mixers that I'm talking to, all the managers that I'm talking to, every one of them is like, yeah, that's what's happening right now. So if you haven't seen that,
yeah, so that is the serious part, I think. If you don't provide a mix in Dolby Atmos, maybe at some point you will not be able to distribute your music anymore to online streaming services. Certainly Apple Music. They will already start by not putting you on playlists, apparently, if the grapevine is right and the rumor is right. Well, he's in Nashville, so I assume he has lots of contacts in one of the music capitals of the world. So yeah, I think it's worrying if you're just a home studio without the ability to make Dolby Atmos mixes very easily. Now he goes on about why Apple Music is doing this. Let's have a look at that. Let's copy this link again
and explain things a little bit better. So why is Apple Music doing this? Now, this is purely my opinion. My opinion is that Spotify has had the dominant market share of music streaming since its inception. Spotify dominates Apple Music in terms of total users and total plays. And I think Apple has been trying to figure out how to get this back. So something about a year ago, Apple Music took over all the TikTok streams. Now, I'm not really sure exactly how this fits together. All I know is that the majority of my clients, my paying clients, used to make way more money off of Spotify and get way more streams off of Spotify. And when this switch happened, they started making more money off of Apple Music, even though they were still getting more streams on Spotify. And it's because Apple Music pays significantly more per stream to the artist than Spotify does. So for that reason, I've always been on Team Apple Music.
Yeah, so he goes on a bit about the fact that he likes Apple Music more because it provides more to the artist. Well, fair enough. And he also says that this move towards Dolby Atmos, it's one of the steps that they're taking to take market share from Spotify, who's still the biggest in the business. So yeah, it could be that that's the reason why Apple Music is pushing this, to have to be different from Spotify in this way. Now, he also mentions that this is coming from Apple. So let's have a look at that part of the video.
industry. I think that was step one. I think this push towards spatial audio, which is basically Apple's version of Atmos, I think this is step two. As far as I know, this is not coming from the labels. This is coming from Apple Music. The labels are not saying, oh, this is fantastic, we need to do this. No, Apple Music is definitely pushing the labels to do this, for sure. No argument there. But I do think it's such an all-encompassing thing with all of the consumer products like already in place that I think that it's gonna work. And I think it's gonna steal market share from Spotify. I actually think that's what's happening. And also Spotify announced 2 days ago, I'll put the article down below, where they showed a photo of their new Dolby ATMOS studio at Spotify. So, you know, Spotify is clearly feeling like they have to answer. That was 2 days ago. So I don't think Apple Music is trying to hurt the little artist, the independent artist. I don't think.
So he goes on about what this means for the artist, but we're here mostly with studio owners, I guess, or home studio owners. So let's discuss that part. Yeah, so it seems to be that even Spotify is thinking about Atmos, obviously trying to keep up with Apple there. So even on Spotify, they might be moving to provide mixes in Atmos, and if Apple is taking the lead there and making sure that all new mixes are provided in Atmos, will Spotify stay behind? I don't know. Now another thing that's happening that Colt mentions as well is that UAD very recently announced that their X series of interfaces also provide Dolby Atmos support. So you see it all around. Also TVs, boom boxes, sound bars, obviously AirPods. Everything is trying to provide spatial audio for consumers, as well as for professionals in the interface department like UAD. So there definitely seems to be a move towards Dolby Atmos everywhere. And well, Colt says it's really pushed by Apple. So it's not coming from the industry like labels, but Apple is really the driving force behind all of this. Now, do you need a special interface and all those speakers? Well, you can use headphones. Let's see what he says about that. So I need to copy this again to the browser, and then we'll have that fragment right now.
Can do it in headphones. Currently, the translation is not great. So if you do it in headphones, it doesn't really translate that great to the cars and to the actual Atmos systems. But at least you know it would sound good in headphones, which is the primary thing that everyone's using right now. So I think this is only going to keep.
Yeah. So basically, he's saying that headphones is really probably the primary way that people are listening to Dolby Atmos mixes on their AirPods or in some other way with headphones. And so it's good to check it this way as well then, right? But it does have its limitations. When I tried Dolby Atmos in Cubase, you can definitely hear the spatial effect somewhat, but it's nowhere near as if the sound is coming from in front of you or behind you or above you. I mean, you hear the difference when you move the pan up or down or left or right or further away or back. There is a difference, but it's definitely not so clear as I imagine it would be if you're sitting in a room with a full Dolby Atmos setup with speakers. I've never been in a room like that, so I haven't actually experienced it, but I can imagine that it's far more spatial than what you get on your headphones. So I'm really wondering as well, like, can you do this on headphones? It might get better, especially if this gets more and more prominent. They will probably improve all of that technology, but at the moment I don't quite feel it's there yet. But obviously it is a good way to check what it will sound like for the consumers who are using AirPods or headphones only. So it does provide that. Now, Colt is very enthusiastic about all of this, and that's probably because he's been on a workshop recently with Mike Miller. Apparently he's a very famous surround sound Dolby Atmos mix engineer who did mixes for Harry Styles. So let's have a look at that. I need to find a quicker way to do this next time.
I went to that Atmos masterclass with Mike Miller, and only after he showed us what he does, and only after me and Ken Lewis and Jeff Braun and Joe Chechik and all these guys figured out how to move forward and only mix in Atmos and then use the stereo fold down, and the stereo fold down actually sounded better than the stereo master. We figured that out. Mike Miller is really the one who like pioneered this whole thing. This is going to be the future. We're only going to mix in Atmos, and the stereo fold down actually sounds better than the stereo masters. None of us could believe it, but it is definitely what's happening, and this is going to be the future for us. So
yeah, so this is going to to a bit of his process, I guess. He noticed that in the workshop they probably invented a way of mixing so that they could only mix in Atmos and then export the track still in stereo, the stereo fold down, and it would sound as good or even better than when they would make a stereo mix. So it doesn't mean that he will make and a stereo mix and then a separate Dolby Atmos mix, but he will just mix in Atmos from now on, it sounds like. And then from that he would derive a stereo mix for all those distributors that still require stereo mixes as well, or for all those areas where stereo mixes are still necessary, which is most areas right now. Of course, you need stereo mixes. So, is it just a fad? Is also the next thing that Colt goes into. Let's have a listen to that. And by the way, I'll get to your comments in a minute.
Leads me to my next point. A huge number of people in the comments were suggesting that this is just like surround sound 5.1, 7.1, that it's just a fad and it's not going anywhere. And I promise you, for the majority of the past year, I felt the same way. I really did. I was watching everything unfold and I'm like, is this the new surround sound? Because you're right. Surround sound was a big fancy thing. It was gonna be the new thing. And then it didn't become the new thing. And the biggest thing that I can say to that, and this is what I truly feel now, is that 5.1 didn't have the consumer electronic base already wrapped up. There was no sound bars, there were no TVs, there were no headphones. Regardless of how good or bad it is on a TV and on headphones, none of this existed. There was no way for them to fake 5.1. And so I think that the consumer electronics base is already so much more developed than 5.1 ever was, that I think that that's a non-argument. To me, in my mind, it's a non-argument and not comparable. Now, the same thing goes for, the adoption of...
Yeah, so definitely he thinks it's not a fad. Everything is more aligned than for previous format changes. Especially the consumer electronics are already prepared to let you listen to spatial audio. So yeah, he might be right. Now, obviously, Colt is going in all the way. Let's have a look at that part. And I see, because I saw that Peter is saying, John is saying, wow, so maybe this is the future of music. Well, Colt definitely thinks so. Let's have a look at that part of the video.
In on this, because I actually believe this is the future now. 2 weeks ago, I was like, we'll see how long it lasts. Now I believe it's the future, and no one's paying me to say that. Let's get on to that. There was so many people in the comments being like, how much is the music industry paying you to put...
Yeah, okay, he goes on about the fact that people are a bit suspicious about his motives, because obviously he is sponsored. All of his videos are sponsored by Sweetwater, and he is very much in the network of the Nashville music industry. So I can imagine that people might think that the music industry is paying him to actually promote this. But he says that's not the case. And he seems very sincere about it all. He seems really enthusiastic about the technology and about learning something new. So I think he just shares his opinion, and his opinion is based on people he talks to in the industry. So we may as well take it serious and have a listen to what he says. Now, He does also go into the concern about the requirement to upload Dolby ATMOS mixes. Let's have a look at that.
Next concern that tons of you had is what's going to happen when everyone is requiring Atmos mixes for distribution. And I'm not going to lie, that's the rumors floating around town here in the industry. No one has a timeline on it. No one knows if it'll happen. No one knows when it'll happen. But the rumor is that one day you will have to submit in Atmos in order to distribute your music at all. Now, I don't see this happening anytime in the near future. I mean, I think this would be years before it happens, if it happens at all. However, I think that, you know, eventually the same thing happened with stereo. Eventually, no one was doing mono anymore, and everyone adopted stereo. And I think over time, this will be exactly the same. Okay, I think that wraps a lot of
Yeah, so he basically sees it as the same change as going from mono recording to stereo, right? Nobody is actually making mono recordings anymore, although we still check for mono compatibility actually when we do a mix. But yeah, I think pretty much 999 of 1,000 mixes will be in stereo. And he expects that this will be the same for Dolby Atmos towards the future. Timelines, hard to predict, of course, but he thinks it will happen rather sooner than later, and that restrictions with regard to distribution formats and what you need to provide to get your music distributed will start soon already. So it's yeah, I don't know. I was worried, I guess. What can I still do mixes for my band, and will I still be able to provide mixes that we can distribute, or do I need to go to a professional studio, or do I need to rebuild this place with a Dolby Atmos setup, which I don't have room for or money actually. So yeah, those are really things that I was thinking about when I watched this video, and that's also why I did a number of polls. So let's have a look at another poll that I recently did, because I also basically so what you use your DAW for, we discussed it already, but I also wondered, like, have you already made a mix in Dolby Atmos, which is meant for distribution and publishing? And 3% of the people who voted, well, part of I should show my screen here. Okay, so 3% of people actually made a Dolby Atmos mix already. Great. 58%, more than half of you, I might say, hasn't made a mix yet, and you're not planning to. 33% say that, well, no, not yet, but I'm going to try this soon. And 6% is oblivious to to the whole question, like, Dolby what? So yeah, considering the fact that if it will go the way that Colt is saying that it will go, then not a lot of people seem concerned or busy with Dolby Atmos yet, but it might get forced upon us. Now, my last poll was about, are you planning to convert your studio setup for Dolby Atmos mixing? And most of you said no, no way. 13% said yes, and 11 is doubting it. But like 3/4 of you basically said, no, I'm not going to convert. But how about if that requirement is there to provide Dolby Atmos mixes for streaming? Would you still, if you're aware of that, would you still stay with that opinion? So let's have a look at some of your comments at the moment. Let's see, there's lots of comments already. Okay, this is nice. Look at this. QFX video. I have a full 916 setup, and it's amazing. It's just getting the headphones set up, I'm having trouble. Well, if you have a 916 setup, that's wow. I guess, well, if your channel name means that you're into video, then I guess it's, it's almost obvious that maybe you've been into surround sound longer already. Great. And Peter, I think, Peter, he says in the past weekend he experienced a 942 Atmos demonstration. Yeah, I should see if some of those demonstrations are around here as well, because I would be very interested to actually hear how it sounds, see what they say over there, look at the equipment. Although, again, I don't have room for it, and at the moment I don't want to spend money on it either, because to me it's I would think it's very expensive. Okay, this is QFX video has a question here. Does anyone know how you monitor Atmos in headphones on Cubase Nuendo? Is there an easy way, or do you always have to use the third order ambisonics? Well, actually, when you if you look at my Cubase video on how Dolby Atmos works in Cubase, you can select the renderer, and the renderer is not so much how you export your mix, but it is how you would like to monitor your mix. And then you can basically choose the binaural renderer. So you will get immersive audio by just using left and right of your headphones. And in that way, you can monitor your mix in headphones. You can make the mix for Dolby Atmos. You can still export it to a full Dolby Atmos format. Well, 714 maximum, I think it is, in Cubase at least. In Nuendo, it might be more. But you can still export for Dolby Atmos, but you can monitor and listen binaurally in your headphones. So that's a nice way to check your mix on headphones, I would think. Let's see. Okay, Peter, you took photos. Yeah, I'm not sure that you will actually be able to post those photos in the chat. Probably not. But yeah, it would be interesting to see. In my video, I also posted a picture of Blackbird Studios in Nashville, where they had a full Dolby Atmos setup. I think it was probably even larger than 924. There were lots of speakers in the big room, and must have been really expensive. And QFX video says that he has the Focal Alpha, but my mains are Focal Twin 6Bs. Okay. Those are very nice speakers. I've been looking at Focal myself, but not yet ready to upgrade. Okay, lots of great questions. Oh, Peter, yes, that's fine. You know, you can just, while I chat on the video, you can just chat amongst yourselves. That's great. I will definitely, I don't have time to read all comments at the moment, but I will definitely read it back afterwards and see what you guys have been discussing. And maybe it'll even give me some ideas for upcoming videos. So that's all fine and great. Yeah, lots of nice discussions. Yeah, what I was also thinking about, what are we going to do if this really becomes the truth? Like if you really need to provide a Dolby Atmos mix to distribute your music to Apple Music, for example, or even to Spotify, how can we do that without, well, there's a couple of options, I think. One is going to a studio and no longer do it yourself. So you farm out your mix. I guess maybe you can even go to that studio and mix at that studio who have when they have a setup for mixing in Dolby Atmos. That's also a way to do this. Obviously, it's no fun because I enjoy having the gear myself, slowly building it up over years and working on music and making it better and better. That part of the my hobby and partly my being serious with music will be gone then, I guess, if I go to a separate studio that has all the equipment to do a Dolby Atmos mix. And I would also not be able to practice it at home, but it is a possibility. Maybe it's also possible to convert your studio to Dolby Atmos. If you have the money and the room, I could go to a bigger room in the house here, for example, then I would have the room to put a Dolby Atmos speaker setup in here, but not in this smaller room which I'm in now. And so I don't think I would probably not go to a full Dolby Atmos setup. But how about you guys? Well, QFX Video has no problem, of course, because he already has a very nice setup. But I'm wondering about you guys who are, according to my poll, most of you are still on just regular stereo setups. So are you thinking about changing, like hearing this from cold? Or are you considering it? Or are you thinking about some other options that you might have? Let me know in the chat, then we can have a look at that as well. Another thing that I was thinking of, and this is something that Cubase also supports, is that you just make a regular stereo mix first, and then you can quite easily convert it to Dolby Atmos format. You can even do that without changing anything in the mix. Then technically, I guess you could deliver a Dolby Atmos mix with just stereo information in there, and you kind of circumvent the requirement of the platform that, well, you do provide a Dolby Atmos file. I don't know if they check that, or, but obviously it kind of defeats the purpose, because a Dolby Atmos mix, you really want to hear the spatial and the immersive effect of everything, and you would not get that then. But you could also take a step go a step further. So make a stereo mix, convert it to a Dolby Atmos format with the Cubase facilities, and then do a bit of a remix to get some spatial information in there and to make it sound like Dolby Atmos. You don't have to go overboard, and you could do that on headphones, for example, if that's good enough for you. That's another opportunity that I'm thinking of. I think that's probably the easiest way currently to make a Dolby Atmos mix. Just start in stereo and then convert it after you're fully done with the stereo mix. Convert it and put some spatial and immersive maybe effects in there. Put something a little bit back, a little bit up, a little bit to the left, right, and then see. And that way you could actually provide a Dolby Atmos mix quite easily. I don't know how good it would be, but it would be a way to get at least a Dolby Atmos mix out there if that's really going to be required by the platforms. Yeah, Peter says that for him as well, room would definitely be a factor. So yeah, I think that's probably for everybody, especially in a home studio. They may not always be very big. So I guess room is always a factor when you somehow want to convert or go Dolby Atmos. Ed over here is saying that he's going to give it a spin for a couple of projects on headphone mixdown and see how it can get on. It's a massive investment. Yes, it definitely is. I can feel your doubt and pain there. I mean, especially if you're not doing this commercially and you can make back the money that you have to spend on that, then. But even if you do this commercially, I think the return on investment of what you need to spend additionally to do a Dolby Atmos, it might take a while before you have earned back that money. QFX Video, I think this channel is very informative and I have always gained lots from the videos. Well, thanks QFX, I appreciate that. I basically do this in the evening hours and I do get some money from YouTube, but it's not a lot, and I do it mostly for pleasure. And well, great that it's appreciated, thank you. Douglas, yeah, good info. Was busy, so missed beginning. Okay, well, you can always rewatch it, but we're basically discussing Dolby Atmos and what it means for home studios, because for other people that may have come to the stream later, Colt Caparoon has recently released a video in which he's saying that the buzz in the industry is that you might have to distribute your mix in Dolby Atmos quite soon, because otherwise you would not be taken seriously anymore. For example, Apple Music would not put you in editorial playlists anymore if you only provide a stereo mix to them instead of a Dolby Atmos mix. So if that's the case, and if Spotify follows suit, then what are we going to do in our home studios? Yeah, Ed is saying here, would love to see a video of someone working on an Atmos mix and talking their thoughts on it. Would you be up for doing an exploring Atmos through headphones in Cubase video, Martin? Well, I might if you guys are all interested in that. I think it's obviously it's new making Dolby Atmos mixes. I'm sure there's lots of people who are really already made lots of them for who it's become a routine, but it's definitely not as charted this territory as just making a regular stereo mix. So it would be new for me as well. I would need to experiment. I would need to look. The way I would do it, I would probably check out some other videos first to see how other people are. Yeah, where are you panning stuff? How are you dealing with reverbs? How are you dealing with delays? What are some of the common movements that you do in a Dolby Atmos mix? That's how I would probably tackle it before I would try it myself, especially if I wanted to get one of those mixes distributed. I have been thinking about maybe, because we're releasing a new album with my band The Wash, April 22nd, and I have been thinking about redoing one of those mixes in Dolby Atmos and see what that brings, what I learned from it. But actually in my video on Dolby Atmos, I have already also linked another video, I think it's by Adam Audio, in which there is a mix engineer who takes us step by step through a Dolby Atmos mix. So other people have done it already, probably more professional people who've done it more than I have. But I might try it myself as well. And if I like it, I can make a video about it. Great streaming, Martin. Well, thanks. I like the fact that my new tool is working to show your comments. Then at least I can also show others who might not be watching the comments in detail which comment I'm talking about. So great. Thanks, John. QFX video. Please, Martin, even though I have the Atmos room, I would love to see a video on headphones. There's not a huge amount on it. Okay, so you mean specifically how to do this on headphones, which would indeed be my video, because I don't have a speaker setup like you have. So my video would be how to do this on headphones. And in my last video, I actually demoed it a bit. I don't know whether you saw it, but I demoed how to do this in Cubase on headphones, and you should be able to also hear the spatial effects in the YouTube audio, because it's basically rendering those effects to YouTube as well. I've also heard people comment about the fact that they're not very clear. I checked back, and I think the YouTube audio is, well, it's not quite up to what I was hearing in my own headphones, but it's almost there. So it's very similar. So I could try that on headphones and see what you guys think and whether you can hear what I'm hearing. And it might be an interesting exercise, definitely. Yeah, add things as well. I'd love to see a bit of a quick dive into it from where you are at the moment with learning it. Well, I'm definitely in the learning curve here. I don't know yet how steep it would be, but there's just one way to find out, is to dive into it, I guess, which is true for all of you guys, right? Even without making a video, you just have to dive into it and try it and enjoy yourself and see what you learn. Okay, yeah. So you would be able to do an Atmos mix once I've done the headphone mix. Yeah. It's great. It's an idea. I'll definitely remember that, QFX. Might be in touch about that. That's a nice idea to see like how different it would be, like when I do a mix on headphones and you would do it on your full speaker setup. I think you have more experience as well at the moment, so I think that would be a difference. But the difference is also the fact that you have a speaker setup in which you might be able to, locate audio more precisely than is possible in a headphone mix. Yes, I do have a video about that, but I'm not really making a Dolby Atmos mix. I'm demonstrating it with some audio, of course, but it's mostly about how Dolby Atmos works in Cubase. And I try to explain how it works in Cubase. I go into a bit of the background for people who are new to Dolby Atmos, like I was just a couple of weeks before I made that video. And Douglas is just going to do it today. Yeah, great idea. That's the way to learn, I guess. Just do it. Yeah, what I'm also thinking is that maybe if this really takes off, there might actually be some tools that automatically convert your stereo mix to a Dolby Atmos mix. Would that be possible? Or maybe just by with some guidance from you, maybe for all those people who only have a stereo setup, who are doing stereo mixes, how can you still provide a Dolby Atmos mix to the distribution platforms if this becomes a requirement? I think there's business there, and that probably means that people will jump on that. If this really becomes a requirement, I would think that a lot of stereo bedroom producers would like something that would easily allow them to convert their stereo mix to a Dolby Atmos mix, at least get some immersive and spatial effects in there somehow. So that could be interesting to see how that works. Okay, Douglas says that he has 5.1 speakers. Well, that's more than I have, definitely. So that's great. I guess you've been working on music for movies, pictures then. Some surround setup. So yeah, I was wondering like how many of you are mixing in Dolby Atmos already, like you guys who are now on the stream. I did a poll, you just saw the results already, but so not a lot of people are actually mixing in Dolby Atmos yet. Only 3% of the people that answered on my poll. And I think over here, I think QFX definitely has done Dolby Atmos. Douglas, I understand, has done at least 5.1. So I'm not sure how many people are on the stream at the moment, but we may be up to that or over that 3% already. So that's good. And yeah, I was also wondering how many of you guys already have a speaker setup for this. So I guess also those two people I just mentioned have a speaker setup for doing more spatial mixes. Okay, QFX mentions that what he has found is that he's had the most fun in 30 years in the music business. Well, that's yeah, I can imagine if you go that way, and especially if you buy and set up speakers like you have, then it could be a lot of fun. I get that. It's well, it has to be, right. It also has to be. It almost, you have to feel like you want it to even do. To even get a speaker setup like that and to set something up like that, and but I can imagine it's really fun. John Ellers, not yet, no. But are you going to? Are you going to after this video, after Colt's video? Who knows? And yes, QFX, every day is a school indeed. We're constantly learning. Even just staying in stereo, I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly checking out lots of stuff, new plugins, new mixing techniques. So it's always like I said, I mostly do mixes for my band Wash, which I guess you kind of get used to because it's always the same singer and it's always sort of the same instrumentation. So I don't get a lot of variety. So I sometimes pull multi-tracks from courses, from Produce Like a Pro to practice outside of my own music as well. But it's mostly for my own band. And still, every new album, every new mix, I try to incorporate different stuff. I'm not staying with the same techniques. I try something new every time to learn and see how I can hopefully do things better. So that's always good. Yes. Well, I think I've basically gone through what I needed to say and what I wanted to share about Colt's video. I see a lot of you are into and thinking about Dolby Atmos as well. At least you joined this stream and you heard about what I had to say. John Ellers is going to try it on headphones in a few months. Yeah, sure. It's definitely the easiest way, I think, to start with this. Just have a look at my Cubase video, like it, and then try it. It's just it's not too complicated. In my Cubase video, I basically because Cubase provides a sort of automated way to go from stereo to Dolby Atmos, but it's sort of, I tried it, but it sort of doesn't like get you into how it works exactly in Cubase. So what I'm doing in my video, I'm setting it up manually, basically. I'm setting up a Dolby ATMOS bed, and I'm setting up a Dolby ATMOS bus, and I check out the routing, and I explain how the Dolby ATMOS renderer plugin works, and how it gets audio from all the Dolby ATMOS objects to that renderer plugin. So yeah, that's the way I learned, by just trying it like that, and then you sort of get a much better feel of how it all works. And once you know how it works, I would say then you can just use the automated way in Cubase to go from stereo to Dolby ATMOS. It's very quick, and then you can get to mixing. When you know the technique, then you get to the creative part of making the mix in Dolby ATMOS, and it's and you know, you have at least the baggage, sort of what's behind all of it. And if anything doesn't go as planned in Cubase, then you kind of trace down. You can kind of trace down the problem and find what what the issue is in a much better way. Okay, QFX over here. He's mentioning that 80% of mixes are still done on headphones. Okay, well that's a bit surprising, because I would expect that, especially when you're talking about Dolby ATMOS mixers that are distributed, then I would think most of them would be done in pro studios that actually have a Dolby ATMOS setup. I know Cold is also mentioning this in his video. He's losing business at the moment because people are requesting Dolby ATMOS mixes from him now as well. In that very same week that he made this video, and he now has to send them to other people who have a Dolby ATMOS setup and who can make mixes for Dolby ATMOS in that way. And he feels he can't do it yet because he doesn't have a setup. But I'm sure he's going to get one set up soon, and I'm sure he will also make a video about it that we can check out as well. Yes, great to see this channel and his followers showing their thoughts with each other. Yes, that's great as well. This is only my second live stream. I kind of did a test live stream, but it's really, I think it's a nice addition to the channel, because normally I have a pretty large lead time. I take at least a week before I make the video when I publish it. So this is much better for quick news, and it's also much better for a nice interaction where I can dive into your comments and see what you guys are thinking and more react directly. Although react directly, I think there's probably a delay of about 10 to 20 seconds. When you type something, well, when I say something, you only see it 10 to 20 seconds later. So that's why I sometimes take a bit to react to your comments, because you only see my reaction 10 to 20 seconds later. Ah, okay, this is what you mean. Even if studios have the Atmos setup, then they will still use the binaural for the approval. Yeah, I can imagine, because yeah, I guess if you make a nice mix on your speaker setup, then you know how it sounds on your speaker setup, and I guess you have to kind of trust that it translates to all the other speaker setups which the renderer does. Yeah, binaural, there's so many people are listening on headphones then, AirPods, that I can imagine that you want to check that separately. Yeah, so I do understand that that's the way it works. I do also wonder, actually, QFX, while I have you on the line, how does mastering work for Dolby Atmos? I've checked it out before when I was making that other video, and I think some mastering studios are offering Dolby Atmos mastering, but I'm kind of wondering how that works, because do they like, because basically the way I understood it when I made that video is that the Dolby Atmos file just contains all the separate audio tracks of your Dolby Atmos mix, with metadata being the spatial information, like where is every track supposed to be located. And yeah, so it's not just a fold down. It contains all the separate items, and those separate items will be rendered on the system that you're listening to. Somebody may be listening on a 714 system, others may be listening on a 914 system, 5.1, and the renderer will take care of mapping all of that metadata and the original tracks to whatever speaker system somebody is listening on. So I'm kind of wondering how the whole mastering process goes. Do you have experience with that? Well, while I'm waiting for that answer, I see somebody else joins who mentions that he's creating a tool for head tracking with a webcam to have a more immersive experience with headphones and binaural on Cubase. Okay, well, interesting, Samuel. Yeah, if you can drop you can drop a comment on one of my Dolby ATMOS videos in the future when you have such a tool. I'd be happy to check it out and see how it works. For me, I think you have some competitors. I think I don't think whether there's anything special for Cubase, but you have competitors there's lots of software out there to make the whole spatial audio and immersive audio much more realistic, where they also tune to your head and your ears and your brain and how it interprets audio, which makes it all much more real. Apparently, I've never used any of that software before myself. I might try it, but yeah, I think you're probably not the only one diving into that, especially if Dolby Atmos gets much more popular the way it seems now. Oh yes, QFX. My question about mastering. Yeah, it's difficult. There is no real mastering yet, but it's coming, so you can't really compress and the magic glue, but you don't need it the same. Okay. Yeah, I can imagine. So basically, as a mixing engineer, that you basically make the final product then. And that's basically the file that you distribute. Yeah, interesting. I'm wondering what mastering engineers are thinking about that. They must also be worried about losing business then, if that's the way of the future. But maybe it's all still in development, and mastering engineers are also finding a way to still add their secret sauce, this part, the magic glue that you're mentioning, to get that final mix and make it sound better on hopefully all systems, like the way they do now on a stereo mix. Yeah, that's one of those softwares that I actually meant before. Stereo mixes on headphones with Wave NX. I think Plugin Alliance also has some software, but like I said, I haven't checked it out fully yet. But it might be interesting if all of this really takes off and you guys would like to see a video about it. Okay, I think I will. I've been streaming for about an hour now. I think I'm gonna wrap it up. I want to thank all of you for being there and for being so supportive and answering my questions and, well, listening to me comment on the Dolby Atmos video of Colt, where he basically says, well, soon you will have to provide a Dolby Atmos mix to streaming services if you want to be taken seriously on Apple Music, for example, because they will go the way of only putting Dolby Atmos mixes in editorial playlists. That's what he's heard from all the industry big wigs out there, I guess you call them. And yeah, so he would know. It's not official anywhere apparently yet, but that's the buzz in the industry. Yeah, interesting video. I wonder whether he's going to make follow as well. I'm sure when he's moving to Dolby Atmos, he's going to make lots of videos about how he converts his studio. And I think he was also talking about going to share that mixing technique about making a Dolby Atmos mix only in such a way that the fold back to stereo is something that, yeah, you don't need to touch it anymore. It's just a perfect stereo mix as well then. Would be interesting whether he needs to do anything special for that, or whether it's somewhere in the renderer, or I'm not sure exactly how it's been done, but that's basically, I think that's the most important point that he picked up from that workshop with Mike Miller. But again, I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks guys for being there. Let's see where my next one will be. I'm closing in on 7,500 subscribers, so maybe I'll do a stream to celebrate that if it happens. So all of you, have a great evening, take care, and see you next time. Bye-bye.